Chapter 1990. At first glance, the people in the Demon Emperor's heaven and earth were all very strange. Chu Yang clearly saw a fat guy staggering out of a restaurant in the distance. He had a fat head, big ears, and a big belly. His face was red and his eyes were blurred. It was obvious that he had drunk too much. This is from P. After eating and drinking in a restaurant, it was normal to get drunk, drink too much, and even vomit. It wasn't worth making a fuss about. For example, when this guy walked out of the restaurant with 5 people and was blown by the wind, he really found a corner and started vomiting. After a while, his body softly fell to the ground. Up to this point, everything was still very normal. But in the next moment, an unexpected change occurred. The moment that guy fell down, he abruptly turned into a fat weasel. Then with a whoosh sound, he drilled himself into an unknown place. This is really fuck. Chu Yang was dumbfounded and tongue-tied. This was also possible, and the people around him did not seem to be surprised by this change at all. It was as if they were used to it. The only one who was surprised was Chu Yang himself. When they had just come ashore, they had already felt the demonic aura that covered the sky and covered the sun. But if those people did not take the initiative to transform, it was really impossible to tell who was human and who was demon. Demon Emperor Heaven. It really is Demon Emperor Heaven. Che Shichu stared at the direction that the weasel left in and clicked his tongue in wonder. This kind of guy, if he landed in the ink cloud sky, he would have been caught and skinned long ago. But here, he actually acted as if he didn't exist. The corner of Bai Yuchen's mouth curled up. She wanted to laugh, but she warned, Xiao, don't speak such words casually in the Demon Emperor sky. The fellows here, if any one of them were to reveal their true form and be skinned, they would be very valuable in the black cloud sky. Che Shichu made a sound. Everyone looked very relaxed at this moment. Before they got off the boat, they had all changed into clean and neat clothes. Now, everyone was dressed in bright and neat clothes. They blended into the crowd and looked no different from the natives of Demon Emperor Heaven. A group of more than 30 people chatted and laughed, with an unprecedentedly relaxed attitude. They stepped into Demon Emperor Heaven. As Chu Yang walked, he kept thinking about the question from before. Is this Jiangnan the same as Jiangnan? After entering the city in front of them, Chu Yang and the others immediately split up and went in from the northern city gate. They passed through the city in a very short period of time. When they gathered again, they were already outside the southern city gate. Then they left, leaving behind a cloud of dust. They didn't linger. After meeting up, there was only a brief discussion before the entire group was once again split up into parts. This time the dispersal was on a large scale. The traces of the dispersal covered more than half of the Demon Emperor sky. Within such a large area, the dispersal was filled with uncertainty and randomness. The entire journey took them no less than 10,000 miles. Finally, they reunited in a quiet small town once again. This small town was not big, but it was not an ordinary place. Instead, it was the region closest to the core of the Demon Emperor Heaven. That was because they only needed to travel another 3,000 kilometers. It was the location of the highest authority in the Demon Emperor sky, the Empress Palace. Empress. This was the title that all the subjects of the Demon Emperor Heaven addressed the Demon Empress. Just like how the subjects of the Eastern Royal Heaven were used to addressing Shui Leihan as Eastern Royal Emperor. In order to hide their traces as much as possible, Chu Yang and the others all changed their appearances. They had no choice but to change their appearances. Perhaps it was because the city they first came into contact with was filled with humans. Chu Yang and the others didn't pay much attention to their appearances. However, as they got closer and closer to the core of the Demon Emperor Heaven, there seemed to be fewer and fewer humans, and more demons. For example, there were many people in this small town. Although there were still humans and demons, there were more demons than humans. There were even many humans, who were demons in human form. If Chu Yang and the others didn't pay attention to changing their appearances, it would be too easy for them to be exposed. Chu Yang, who was the first to arrive, bought a large house that had been abandoned for a long time. Then, he dug a normal well in the courtyard. Under the water of the well, He dug another tunnel that led directly to the slums in another area. As the saying goes, a crafty rabbit has 3 burrows. Naturally, there were more than a few tunnels that led to the outside world. Many tunnels were dug below, connecting to a few rundown houses on the surface, which became Chu Yang's temporary residence. There were many people here, but it was also the area with the most floating population. It was a place where great hermits hid in the city. Chu Yang and the others settled down here for the time being. On the surface, everyone was doing their own things, living and working in peace and contentment. However, everyone was actually seizing the time to cultivate, hoping to have a new breakthrough before the new wave of enemies arrived. Especially Bai Yuchen, who had lost an arm. Because he was the most obvious target, he didn't even step out of the house, staying in the maze-like tunnel to cultivate. During this period, Chu Yang had been trying to open the tribulation space, but he hadn't been able to do so. He really didn't know when he would be able to use his biggest trump card again. The only gratifying change was that the spiritual energy was gradually decreasing. It was no longer as endless as before. This made Chu Yang feel somewhat comforted. It's good that there are such signs. It should be soon, right? It wasn't that Chu Yang didn't have the patience to wait, but he was really short of medicinal herbs now. Cultivation, improvement, treatment, nourishment, all of these couldn't be done without medicinal herbs. Chu Yang wanted to open the tribulation space precisely because of this. Now the incomplete version of heavy pills had been completely used up. As for the super version of heavy pills, although there were still 2 left, they could only be saved for emergencies. Other than that, they were completely broke. Well, they weren't completely broke. It seemed that they still had less than 700,000 purple cloud coins. Generally speaking, this was a huge sum of money. During this period of time, the divine spirit of the tribulation had been absorbing the deathly energy from the almost continuous battles, and it had recovered a little. After all, the casualties on both sides were at least saint-level experts, and this was undoubtedly very beneficial to the divine spirit of the tribulation. But speaking of complete recovery, without a certain amount of deathly energy, there was still absolutely no hope of recovery. It was undoubtedly very difficult to obtain such a large amount of deathly energy. The divine spirit of the tribulation required deathly energy. Not only was there a requirement for quantity, but the quality was also very important. The deathly energy of ordinary living creatures, and even the deathly energy of ordinary martial artists, had almost no effect on the divine spirit of the tribulation. At least the deathly energy of martial artists of heaven level and above would have a certain effect. Since completely escaping from Mo Yuntian's pursuers, the divine spirit of the tribulation no longer had any good healing resources. It could only rely on a certain amount of deathly energy provided by Chu Yang to recover its condition. But this situation changed again after coming to this small town. Less than 1,000 miles south of this town was a place of ancestral tombs of the demon race. It occupied an extremely large area, and for many years, all the demons in the vicinity died. Their corpses would be buried in the ancestral tombs, or simply thrown in. To the divine spirit of the tribulation, this place was undoubtedly a place of great nourishment. In fact, this was also a big reason why Chu Yang chose to stay here. Of course, there were similar places around the dozens of cities of the demon race that he had passed by earlier, and a few of them were even bigger than this. But Chu Yang definitely didn't dare to stay in such places. There was no other reason other than that the target was too big. No matter what, they had finally settled down for the time being. Although the time of settling down might be very short, they could still take a few breaths. At least they could release as much of the anxiety and urgency of being chased previously as possible. Many of them went out on the first night of settling down with the purple cloud coins that Chu Yang had given them. They called it to enjoy the scenery of a foreign land. Actually, everyone understood. These few fellows had gone to visit the kills. Perhaps Chu Yang didn't know, or perhaps he had already expected it. Just as he was settling down in Lone Bamboo City, the reinforcements from Mo Yuntian had already split into 5 groups and entered Demon Emperor Heaven. There were even the peak battle power of the 3 big sects that had come out in full force to Demon Emperor Heaven. They had no choice but to come. They didn't dare not to come. Kill those people and capture Chu Yang. It will be considered as atonement for your crimes. If you can't complete this mission, the three big sects will disappear from Imo Yuntian forever. This was the ultimatum that Imo Yuntian's officials had given to the three big sections. Or it could be said to be the ultimatum of death. So this time, the three big sects were all fighting with their lives on the line. No one really took the Sky Emperor's threat as a joke. The experts of the sects that had been mobilized this time, other than the sect masters, who still needed to hold down the fort at home, the rest had all come out in full force. Just the experts belonging to the three big sects had already rushed into Demon Emperor Heaven in a scale of more than 20,000 people. At this point, there was no choice but to mention something else. After Meng Wuya's request for help was sent back to Imo Yuntian, the entire imperial court of Imo Yuntian was shaken. Before this, no one would have thought that the great general of wind and thunder, Meng Wuya, would actually fail. He was actually defeated, and even forced to such a state by the enemy. He had no choice but to ask for help from his home. The news from Meng Wuya completely didn't mention the various grievances he had suffered in Eastern Royal Heaven. He also wouldn't mention it, and didn't dare to mention it. At such a sensitive time, Meng Wuya knew that this kind of news was enough to cause an earthquake. An earthquake that was enough to shake the entire Heaven Imperial Court. But even if he didn't mention it, and was willing to swallow these grievances, just the news of his defeat alone would cause Yuan Tianji to fly into a rage. This Chu Yang isn't simple, Yuan Tianji said. If he doesn't die, there will be no end of trouble in the future. The enmity of killing is absolutely irreconcilable. Heavenly Emperor Imo Yuntian, Yuan Tianji, made the following decision practically at the first moment. Imo Yuntian's deputy commander Yu Qi, lead the 10 generals under your command, 3,000 Imo Yuntian Imperial Guards, 30,000 elite troops, and another 20,000 troops from the Blood Fiend Army. The troops will be divided into 5 groups and enter Demon Emperor Heaven to rendezvous with Meng Wuya. Go all out to capture Chu Yang and the remaining evildoers. Meng Wuya was unfavorable in battle and damaged my Imo Yuntian's prestige. He will be demoted by 1 rank, and his salary will be forfeited for 3 years. He will be allowed to redeem himself by meritorious service. Observe the future. Under Heavenly Emperor Imo Yuntian's command, Imo Yuntian's winds and clouds shook. Chapter 1991. The entire Heaven Imperial Court seemed to feel the impending storm and thunder. Originally from P. The reason why Heavenly Emperor Imo Yin sent out troops this time was obviously not purely to capture Chu Yang, but to establish his power. Meng Wuya's unexpected defeat caused Imo Yuntian's reputation to fall. The entire Imo Yuntian couldn't accept such humiliation. Therefore, Yuan Tianji must destroy Chu Yang with a thunderous force and establish Imo Yuntian's immortal reputation. The entire Heaven Imperial Court was shaken. Everyone, including the Lord Saint, focused their gazes on the south of the Misty River, in the direction of the Demon Emperor Heaven. However, it was also at this delicate moment that there was a sudden drastic change in the battle situation at Purple Cloud Heavens. The latest news came from there. After a long million years of recuperation, the extraterrestrial demons were about to give up on the small fights during this period of time, and were preparing to send out troops with the intention of conquering a few more worlds to be used by the birthing demons. The entire Heaven Imperial Court was instantly tense. The unexpected arrival of this news seemed to have even surpassed the news of Imo Yuntian's aggressive attack. After Xue Leihan sent off the Lord Saint who came out of nowhere, he immediately rushed to Purple Cloud City. However, after he arrived, everything he saw and everything he heard made the East Emperor furious. Bastard, what were you thinking? Why did you do things like this? Looking at General Lan, Xue Leihan was furious, almost clenching his fists. General Lan had followed Xue Leihan for more than 1,000,000 years, but he had never seen the emperor so angry. Moreover, he was angry at himself. He was sweating profusely on the spot, drenching his clothes. The most important thing was that great General Lan himself was still a little confused. What did I do wrong? Why do I feel like I didn't do anything wrong? I asked you to stop Imo Yuntian's army, and this is how you did it. Xue Leihan's voice was cold. I asked you to protect the East Royal Heaven, and you let Mo Yuntian trample on the rivers and mountains to protect it. General Lan's head touched the ground, not daring to answer at all. In the big tent, only the 3 generals kept quiet out of fear, trembling all over. The others had been chased out long ago. However, within a radius of tens of thousands of miles, it was suddenly filled with the aura of an emperor. The wind and clouds changed color, and the universe became miserable. Once the Shui Leihan emperor got angry, it was enough to affect the aura of heaven and earth. Although he clearly knew that the matter was not as serious as the emperor said, Great General Lan still lowered his head and admitted his mistake. It was obvious that the emperor was furious. Would it be unwise to force an explanation? Has Chu Yang already confirmed that he has entered the demon emperor's heaven? Shui Leihan asked seriously. Yes. Shui Leihan looked up at the sky, remaining silent for a long time. The air within a radius of 10,000 miles seemed to have completely condensed into a single piece in an instant. In the distant sky, countless experts who were flying in the air for some unknown reason suddenly found themselves frozen in the air. He couldn't fly forward, backward, or upward. He could not descend any further. Just a moment ago, it was still safe in the sky, but all of a sudden, even the space was completely frozen. Everyone was aghast. What was going on? After a long time, Shui Leihan finally exhaled. Forget it. The sealed space, which covered an area of no less than 10,000 miles, suddenly opened with a whoosh, like glass suddenly shattering. During this period, no matter who it was, as long as they were flying and frozen in the air, their bodies turned into dust at the same time. Not even a drop of blood was left. Great General Lan felt his back. His cold sweat had already formed a river, and his clothes were already drenched, dripping down along the corners of his clothes. Yuan Shetu is dead, and Yuan Tianji is going to kill Chu Yang. But if Chu Yang dies... Shui Leihan suddenly paused here, and only after a long time did he say slowly, "Then I will kill Yuan Tianji." Great General Lan's heart skipped a beat. Even his scalp was covered in cold sweat. At this moment, the cold sweat covered his head, and even flowed into his eyes, making Great General Lan's eyes sour. He finally understood one thing. It was only now that he finally understood. This time, he was filled with regret. It turned out that all the measures taken by the emperor, and all the orders given to him, were for the sake of protecting that Chu Yang. This realization made Great General Lan scared out of his wits. It turned out that my understanding was wrong from the start, putting the cart before the horse. No wonder the emperor was so angry. If I had known this, why would I still care about Meng Wuya? I would have directly buried Meng Wuya and the 10,000 people here without caring about anything else. I was really smart all my life, but stupid for this moment. For one Chu Yang, the emperor actually planned to get rid of another heavenly emperor. What kind of person is this Chu Yang? Chu Yang, Shui Leihan seemed to be explaining. Or perhaps, he couldn't bear to see his loyal subordinate confused and in pain. Finally he said softly, "Chu Yang is my brother." He looked deeply at Great General Lan and said softly, "My only brother, the only brother that I acknowledge." His voice was very calm. But when this calm voice landed in the ears of Great General Lan and the other 2 generals, it was tantamount to a shocking thunder. Everyone was dizzy, and their bodies swayed continuously. Great General Lan and the rest had long known that Chu Yang was Yen Russian's brother. They had even complained about Yen Russian behind his back. Why didn't he think about his own status, actually becoming sworn brothers with such a small character? Wasn't he afraid of lowering his own status? This Chu Yang was actually the emperor's brother. Oh my god! What kind of situation was this? Great General Lan even had the urge to slap himself. Why didn't I get closer to the people and get closer to Chu Yang back then? Shui Leihan took a breath and said softly, "If Chu Yang dies, then I'm afraid I won't be able to live for long." When he finished, Shui Leihan flicked his sleeves and left. But Great General Lan couldn't take such a blow anymore. His body swayed twice, and he suddenly sat on the ground, spitting out a mouthful of blood. For a moment his face was as white as paper. The consequences of Chu Yang's death were actually so serious. His life and death. It actually concerned the emperor's life and death? Was this possible? It was impossible. But why did the emperor say that? Oh my God. This sinner knows his mistake. This sinner will go to the demon emperor's heaven right now and bring Chu Yang back. I would rather die than let Chu Yang come back alive. Great General Lan roared and jumped up. You're not allowed to go. Shuelehan had already walked out of the tent and shouted. The three of them were dumbstruck. Why? Since Chu Yang means so much to the emperor, why didn't he let us go and rescue him? There's no need to go. Shuelehan turned around slowly. If we were to go now, Chu Yang's previous 10,000 miles of escape would not be possible. It would become completely meaningless. The reason why he risked his life to escape from the Eastern Royal Heaven, other than to avoid a great enmity, is because, I understand. He looked up at the sky and sighed. I understand. Demon Emperor Sky, Empress Palace. The Demon Empress was dressed in an indifferent white robe, as she sat upright on the snow-white lotus flower in the center. The lotus slowly rotated on its own, and the hall was filled with an extremely peculiar spiritual energy. Suddenly, the white light in the hall flickered inexplicably. Then, the hall fell into an extreme darkness. Only bits of starlight lit up abruptly, like stars in a clear night. Heaven cover. It's actually heaven cover. The Demon Empress slowly opened her eyes, and a trace of heartfelt surprise flashed across her eyes. She looked at the hall that was originally her own. The illusory starry sky now, heaven cover, was an extremely special divine spirit secret technique. Only when the divine spirit of a ruler of another world was projected into another world would such a situation occur. At this moment, the projection returned to the void of the primordial chaos. I wonder who has the time to visit this old friend of mine. The Demon Empress' eyes flashed with sparkling white light. She said calmly, her voice incomparably beautiful, as if containing infinite friendship. In a boundless land of stars, a black-robed figure stood with his hands behind his back. He walked out slowly, standing in front of the Demon Empress. The person who came was tall, and wore a simple golden crown on his head. He looked like he was only about 30 years old. His face looked as if it was carved by a knife or sword, and the outline of his face was completely distinct. His eyes were cold, as if completely devoid of any emotion. He walked out with his hands behind his back, like a high and mighty god walking in the mortal world, overlooking the mortal world. Although the person in front of her was only a divine spirit projection, everything about him was exactly the same as the real person on the other side. Only after reaching the level of DE could one have such a miraculous ability. Exiner, we haven't seen each other for many years. Have you been well all these years? The black-robed man asked indifferently. The Demon Empress sat still and said indifferently, You're not dead yet, and you're as healthy as before. Of course I'm well. Yuan Tianjia, why have you come here today? How dare you? How dare you rashly activate heaven cover? Aren't you afraid that I'll activate the restriction here and make your divine spirit projection stay here forever, or even completely destroy it? The black-robed man was the projection of the dark cloud heaven's emperor, Yuan Tianjia. Yuan Tianjia was slightly startled when he heard this. Then he smiled and said in a gentler tone, We haven't seen each other for many years. You don't have to scare me the moment you see me, do you? Aren't you afraid of scaring me away? The Demon Empress said coldly, You make it sound like we have some kind of friendship. Speak frankly, why have you come here? Yuan Tianjia was silent for a moment. Then he said, Exiner is as smart as ever. She wouldn't come here for no reason. Exiner, I've come here to ask for a favor. I hope you'll agree. The Demon Empress slowly raised her head. Her tone suddenly became piercingly cold. Yuan Tianjia, why don't you try calling me Exiner again? The hall was suddenly plunged into an extremely cold place. Yuan Tianjia smiled helplessly and waved his sleeves. Fine, I won't call you that. I'll just take it that you like me calling you that. If you have something to say, then say it. The Demon Empress said coldly. If you're done, then get out of my sight. The Demon Empress was very rude, but Yuan Tianjia wasn't angry at all. He still had a gentle smile on his face. Each of them was in charge of their own world. Each of them was the ruler of their own world. However, every time they stepped into someone else's world, it was equivalent to using their own world to suppress someone else's world. That was why they were called heaven suppressing. It was natural for the demon empress to be so rude. My men have already split into 5 groups and entered the demon emperor heaven. Everything in the main hall was smashed into pieces. Shuelehan, you bastard. You're obviously threatening me. The demon empress hadn't lost her temper like this for almost hundreds of thousands of years. But this time, she was indeed mad with anger, almost losing control. Within a day, she was overshadowed twice by 2 celestial emperors. Wasn't this sullen enough? If that was all, it was still fine. But that damned Donghuang Shuelehan actually threw down an oath to threaten her. This was blatant contempt, blatant blasphemy, blatant coercion. Must I listen to a bastard like you? The demon empress roared. I'm going all out with you to help Yuan Tianji. I want to kill your brother. Let's see what you can do to me. I'm so angry, so angry. Guards, the demon empress yelled. Her voice shook the entire demon empress palace. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. 3 people rushed in. Seeing the once magnificent hall suddenly become a mess, all of them were dumbfounded. What was going on? Was there an attack from outside? But even though it was a mess, why weren't there any traces of fighting? The demon empress' face was full of murderous intent. She waved her hand and shouted, "Pass down my order." The 3 of them stood up straight at the same time. The demon empress hadn't been so stern in many years. It seemed like something big was about to happen. The demon empress was only halfway through her sentence when the meaning of her words suddenly changed. Pass down my order. Clean up the hall. Then she sighed. Sigh. The 3 of them fainted at the same time. Oh my God, Your Majesty. Your Majesty, you're too. You called the 3 of us in with such great fanfare and gave us such a serious order. Just to clean up the hall. The demon empress sighed deeply for a while. She really couldn't explain it to outsiders. She was very clear that Shuelehan was definitely not joking. He could totally do it, and he even dared to do so. If Shuelehan really went crazy, he would definitely be able to destroy both worlds at the same time. Chapter 1994. Tears welled up in June Weiling's eyes. Second brother. Even if all of us have become peak-level saints or something even higher, you are still our second brother. Forever. Whoever dares to disrespect you, we'll kill him together. Wu Jueqing said coldly. So I still have some status in your hearts. Then, what about Big Brother? What do you take him for? The 3 of them fell into silence at the same time, and were speechless for a long time. Who was Big Brother? The Calamity Sword Master. The previous Calamity Sword Master. The Calamity Sword Master of their era. Wu Jueqing stood up slowly and said calmly, stepping on the heavens, pointing his sword to the east of the clouds. Who still remembers the name Yundong? Does anyone? The 3 of them were still like statues, not saying a word. But their breathing became heavy and hurried in an instant. Looks like all of you don't remember? That's great. Wu Jueqing laughed mockingly. Or maybe all of you only remember the last moment when you were betrayed by Big Brother. Nourishing the heavens. Yet you don't remember Big Brother's support from the beginning? Second brother, don't say any more. June Weiling suddenly reached out a hand. Second brother. What's the point of saying all this now? June Weiling said painfully. Stepping on the heavens, pointing his sword to the east of the clouds. We all remember. How can we forget for a moment? But when we were betrayed back then, that heart-wrenching pain. Ha ha ha. Wu Jueqing looked up and laughed. All of you are in pain. All of you are in pain. Ha ha ha. All of you are in pain. You actually said that you are in pain. Ha ha ha. Are you in pain? Are you really in pain? All the pain that you have endured, all the pain, are just illusions that you think you are infallible. Can your insignificant pain compare to the pain that Big Brother endured? Wu Jueqing's tears flowed freely. His fingers trembled. All of you are a bunch of heartless things. Heartless. Heartless. All of you have no conscience, none at all. Wu Jueqing roared. Suddenly he laughed bitterly. That's true. All of you are already saints now. That's awesome. There's no need to remember the Calamity Sword Master. There's no need to remember friendship. Ha ha ha. Jun Weiling and the other 2's faces turned red. They stood up angrily. Nonsense. You're talking nonsense. Second brother. We respect you as second brother, but you can't distort the truth like this. We brothers have been suffering for tens of thousands of years. Although the past was unbearable to look back on. Which night did she not cry when she dreamed of it? Do you know all of this? What right do you have to criticize us like this? During these tens of thousands of years, no one even dared to make new friends. This pain. Do you understand? Do you understand? Do you understand? June Weiling roared. Answer me. Do you understand? Then what about our boss? The ones who should really feel sad should never be us. It should be the previous tribulation's sword masters. They gave up everything for their brothers. But in the end, all they got in return was resentment and eternal infamy. Also, do you know why you haven't met any descendants of the tribulation's sword masters? Wu Jueqing said in surprise. The reason is actually very simple. After the tribulation's sword masters sent their brothers away, they themselves died. As for their descendants, the history books have always been written by the victors. This is a very reasonable saying. But, when it falls on the betrayer and the betrayed, it's a tragedy. Human nature can betray their friends in front of great benefits. Perhaps the truth has long been completely destroyed by those victors. Our boss is dead, so there's nothing left to say. Then, everything will be said by us. How we say it, how will the world listen? Ha ha ha. How laughable. How laughable, how laughable. So we're the victors? Such victors? Wu Jueqing's words were like knives. The three of them lowered their heads in shame. I only know the story of a descendant of the tribulation's sword master. The only girl who survived was surnamed June. Later on, after the disappearance of the tribulation's sword master, her family was ambushed and assassinated by the descendants of the tribulation's sword masters until they were destroyed. Wu Jueqing was talking about Jun Shiju's story. He didn't know that Jun Shiju wasn't the direct descendant of the tribulation's sword master. But he said it out loud now. The three of them turned pale. They couldn't stand steadily anymore and sat down dejectedly. With a poof, they sat heavily on the chairs. Chapter 1995. The three saint-level experts would lose their balance and fall to the ground due to some unknown reason. No one with any common sense in martial arts would agree with this fact. But such a ridiculous thing happened just like that. While you're gnashing your teeth at the boss, your descendants are hunting down the boss descendants. They're so filial, they've fulfilled your wishes, Wu Jueqing sneered. For our sake, boss had even sacrificed his life and soul. Now that he's dead, even his soul is gone. There's no future for him. And he's going to have to bear the infamy of eternity. Yet all of you are still sitting here drinking wine perfectly fine. Even boss's seat has been taken away. All of you have really taken your revenge too thoroughly. The three of them were trembling all over. Baidu search ACOM. Tribulation's love moves heaven and earth. Moves heaven and earth? Pooh. Wu Jueqing sneered. His laughter was full of mockery and ridicule. But as he sneered, his tears finally fell uncontrollably. Is there really such a thing? June Weiling's voice trembled. Suddenly he roared. Even if there is such a thing, how did you know? What you've said are just conjectures. What evidence do you have? You actually want to get evidence from me. Are you really that considerate? There are so many facts in front of us, and you still want evidence? Unfortunately, I really don't have any evidence. Other than what I saw. Everything else was told to me by the current tribulation sword master. Wu Jueqing said lightly. He should be the last tribulation sword master. And this tribulation sword master is the one you were talking about just now, the one who killed Heavenly Emperor Mo Yun's son. I entered the Heavenly Imperial Court with him. At the same time, his brothers came up too. His brothers. Wu Jueqing's voice was full of envy. This tribulation sword master surpassed the limits of all the previous tribulation sword masters, and ascended with his brothers. At that time, more than 10 golden bridges fell at the same time. The tribulation sword master and his brothers ascended at the same time. That scene, I stood on another bridge and watched in a daze. My heart was full of envy. The brothers were of one mind and never doubted, but us. Second brother. You. Don't say any more. You don't want to say? Why not? Do you think I want to tell you? Do you think I'm talking to you today? Are you worthy? I just don't want boss's heroic soul to pass away. You also have to bear a bad reputation. Jun Weiling and Yan Huanming listened to him in a daze. Then they suddenly cried out in grief. They completely lost control of their bodies and started to cry bitterly. He covered his face with his hands. Tears flowed freely through the gaps between her fingers. Shiman Wanli let out a long sigh, one after another. As he sighed, tears streamed down his face. The person whom he had hated for tens of thousands of years was actually the one who owed him the most? However, he had hated his big brother, his benefactor, the person who had sacrificed everything for him, for tens of thousands of years. For tens of thousands of years. How comical was this? What a joke! What kind of ingratitude was this? Also, if the bloodline of his eldest brother's descendants really ended in the hands of his descendants, do I still have the face to live in this world? Second brother is right. Am I worthy? Am I worthy to be called brothers? After a period of silent sobbing, Shiman Wanli said, Step on the firmament. Soar to the east of the clouds. Who dares to hurt my brother? Suddenly, everyone was shaken from the bottom of their hearts. They had heard this sentence before. It was boss who said it. But there had never been a moment like this before. When they heard this sentence, they were as shocked as a sudden clap of thunder. It was like a heart that had been cold for tens of thousands of years. At the moment when it heard these words, suddenly it became boiling hot. Boss! Boss! Jun Weiling screamed. She laid on the ground and pounded her fists on the ground. She cried bitterly, unable to speak. Wu Jueqing's words were like the sharpest needle that pierced deeply into her heart when she thought about it now. The three of them were in so much pain that their hearts convulsed. They almost couldn't breathe. The pain pierced through their hearts. Hee. While you were gnashing your teeth and resenting boss, your descendants were hunting down boss descendants. They were so filial and fulfilled your wishes. Boss even sacrificed his life and soul for us. Now that he's dead, his soul is gone, and he can't have any descendants. He even has to bear the infamy of eternity. Yet, you guys are still sitting here drinking wine, and boss' seat is gone. Your revenge is too thorough. I can't help but admire you. I admire you so much that I want to prostrate myself before you. I can't help but admire you. The more they thought about it, the more regretful they felt. They felt that even if they really died now, it would be too late by tens of thousands of years. Yan Huanming sat in a daze with her eyes wide open. It was as if she was an ownerless shell without life and soul. After a long time, a gurgling sound came from her throat. A mouthful of blood flowed out from the corner of her mouth and dripped down. She suddenly opened her bloody mouth and cried loudly. Boss, I'm sorry. I've been scolding you all these years. I'm not human, I'm a beast, a heartless beast. I want to go back. I want to go back now. I want to kill that bunch of bastards. Jun Weiling's eyes were red and murderous. They actually dared to lay their hands on boss descendants. Are those bastards still my grandchildren? You don't have to do it. Wu Jueqing smiled bitterly. Karma is a cycle of justice. Our clans have long disappeared in the wind. We don't know who destroyed them. Perhaps it was the new master of Calamity Sword. Or perhaps it was them who had been blinded by their own interests. Jun Weiling was stunned. Then he shouted, Good job. Good job. When they heard that the clans built by their descendants had been destroyed, they naturally felt inexplicably sad. However, this was something that had happened tens of thousands of years ago. Most importantly, when they thought of their wrong thoughts all these years, when they thought of the possibility that their boss descendants were all killed by their own descendants, they were in so much pain that they wished they were dead. They didn't want to think about it anymore. More than that, they didn't dare to think about it anymore. Tears flowed down Wu Jueqing's face. When he first heard about it from Chu Yang, Wu Jueqing was already agitated once. But this time, facing his brothers who had gone through the same thing, he couldn't hide the regret and sorrow in his heart anymore. He cried bitterly. At the same time, countless questions were answered by Wu Jueqing one by one. Why did our boss have to make such a sacrifice? Why doesn't this master of Calamity Sword have to do that now? Why? Why is it so unfair to our boss? Wu Jueqing sobbed and answered these questions one by one. The three of them couldn't stop crying. It turned out that the Calamity Sword in the Master of Calamity sword had its own history and mission. Boss actually didn't meet the requirements and had no choice but to, after a long time, the four of them finally stopped feeling sorrowful. June Weiling, Shiman Wanli, and the rest personally made a new table. All around, 10 seats were neatly arranged. One of them was dignified and solemn, but it was empty. There wasn't a single thing in it. Looking at the newly built table, the four of them burst into tears again. The position of boss had disappeared for tens of thousands of years. Today, it was finally set up for him again. However, where was boss now? The brothers were all here. But where was the boss who had given the most, shouldered the most, and thought the most for the brothers? Thinking of this, the four of them felt like their hearts were being twisted by knives. They couldn't control themselves. What followed was an entire day and night. The four of them didn't close their eyes. They kept talking and talking. They kept recalling bits and pieces of the past dawn. Second brother, come back with us. June Weiling's eyes were red. Wu Jueqing shook his head slowly. Go and fight the extraterrestrial demons. This is a matter of life and death. My cultivation isn't enough. Even though I'm not afraid of sacrifice, with my current cultivation, even if I force myself to go, I'll only be a burden to you. I don't want to burden others and myself. Wu Jueqing shook his head resolutely. Chapter 1996. The three of them didn't say much and left hurriedly. PCM. Before leaving, he warned Wu Jueqing again and again. Don't run around. We will come and visit you at any time. Your cultivation is really too weak now. In this world, it's hard to find anyone weaker than you. The other brothers will definitely come and visit you when they know. Hurry up and cultivate. These are some elixirs to help with cultivation. These are some spiritual treasures to help with cultivation. We have to go back and inform the other brothers as soon as possible. Every moment counts. Or the other brothers will also come here to seek confirmation from you. You must take care, second brother. Watching his brothers go back, Wu Jueqing took a deep breath and suppressed the bitterness in his heart. I really want to go and fight with you guys, but I can't drag you guys down. Brothers, wait for me. Wu Jueqing didn't reject the cultivation elixirs left behind by his brothers. In fact, he didn't even say anything courteous, and accepted all of them. There was no need to be courteous when taking things from his brothers. If he were to be courteous with them, they would probably break his head the moment he said something courteous. Boss, all the brothers already know about your painstaking efforts back then. Wu Jueqing murmured. As long as there's a chance, we must grasp it and revive boss. The brothers will shed all our blood to apologize to boss. After a long silence, Wu Jueqing punched the hard and solid ground of the jade rock hard. This punch was completely self-torture. There was no defense at all. No cultivation at all. The ground didn't move, but Wu Jueqing's fist was immediately covered in blood. But he didn't stop. He continued to punch down, scolding angrily. What are you pretending to be cool for? Didn't you also scold boss like this back then? You met your own brothers. Yet you speak so harshly and make such sarcastic remarks. You scolded them for being ungrateful. But what about you? What about you? What about you? How did you resent boss back then? 40,000 years. Is your hatred any less than theirs? What are you scolding for? How can you have the face to do that? Sigh. Ever since he knew the truth, the hatred and helplessness in his heart had accumulated for too long. He couldn't let it go. Every time he thought about it, it was like a heart-wrenching bite. He hated it. He hated the heavens. He hated himself even more. Why? Why? And who could tell him why the heavens were so unfair? Why did good people have to suffer so many disasters? Faced with the hatred of his brothers, Wu Jueqing felt as though he had seen himself back then. The same disdain and resentment. Hot blood rushed to his head in an instant. He could no longer control himself. He only knew that he was filled with hatred and anger. He wanted to scold the idiots in front of him until they woke up. Bastard. After putting their arms around each other's shoulders for so long, drinking more than 10 kilograms of wine, being so intimate as if they were wearing the same pants, they actually only remembered to ask each other's names now, And both of them were. Could this be the legendary saying that if they were not of the same family, they would not enter the same house? This pair of birds of a feather was really not just a little bit. There were already too many weirdos like this, but there were actually two of them. And they were so lucky to be at the same table. This was really a lucky chance. The two masters sighed endlessly in their hearts. The two of them were actually able to witness this meeting. It was really the good fortune of 3 lifetimes. My name is Yao Ningning. May I ask for your name? Grandpa Lin directly said his real name. And the two masters did not even have time to stop him. My Grandpa Lin, this Yao Ningning, was the name of Demon Emperor Heaven. Who in the entire Demon Emperor Heaven did not know? There would definitely not be a repeat of this situation. If it was a normal person, perhaps they would not know. But this guy had a tyrannical aura. He was obviously a person of the pugilistic world. How could he not know his name? Now that he knew who you were, he could not help but try to worm his way into being friends with you. Just look at how much we worship this guy's theory of picking up girls. Wouldn't he give you whatever you want? Grandpa Lin, you are too. You said you wanted to make friends. That's not a problem. But you have already revealed your identity. How are you going to make friends? Just wait for the other party to kowtow to you. Unexpectedly, that weirdo laughed, his eyebrows dancing. Yao Ningning? Is it a girl and a Yao of that name? Brother, I have to say your name is a little unsuitable. It sounds like the name of a girl. It's two. He actually started to criticize. The two masters looked at each other stunned. This weirdo actually did not know that this was Grandpa's name? Who said it wasn't? Grandpa Lin slapped his thigh, as if he had met a confidant, and said, I thought so too, but my mother refused to change it for me. I wanted to change my name, but I was scolded and beaten by my mother. You don't even know, Sai, it's a long story. Your mother is so awesome. You even have a mother to discipline you. That weirdo said with a little envy. The two masters of the demon race looked at each other, dumbfounded. They lowered their heads at the same time, and drank their tea with a speechless expression. Weirdo. Definitely a super weirdo. Your mother is so awesome. Sai, his mother was the demon empress. How could the demon empress not be awesome?